Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live or listening to replay first. Always appreciate the live listeners that hop on as we are live streaming currently, and as well, we do pop ups. So today's episode is going to be a pop up about how to set up a trust fund if you're not rich. But we always appreciate the live listeners that can hop on for the pop up, and as well for the listeners that listen in the replay. Always appreciate you all. If you all would like to get a consultation after, or if you want to just have the email early, it's Christian at trustchristian.com, or you can go to welcometothevault.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com, or welcometothevault.com. And you all can go to those websites and inquire whether it's a consultation or get more content or feedback about particular matters that we may discuss here on the recording, which is always awesome. So, how to set up a trust fund if you're rich, and we're definitely going to get into this. Definitely, today's a pop up. Appreciate you, Ernest, for tuning in live. If you're tuning in live and you actually can type into the chat, feel free to type into the chat. I always appreciate people typing into the chat. We're going to start off with some news because definitely haven't done an episode in a few days. And so Bitcoin jumps to 4%, new 2000 high. And they say it's posted based off of the indicators that it should surge past 5,600. And they're talking about this thing actually getting back up to about 19,000, 20,000, based off the indicators. Um, if you all wanted to look over some of the confidence that is instilled in this environment right now, you all can look at crypto rand, RAND. You all can go look at it says institutions may be the next catalyst. Fidelity, which is a obviously large financial institution. Financial Digital Assets, a subsidiary of the world's fourth largest asset manager with 2 trillion under asset management. Pretty much according to the survey, about 22% of institutional investors such as Fidelity already have some exposure to digital assets, with most investments having been made within the past 3 years. Or 4 of the 10 respondents say that they are open to future investments in the digital assets over the next 5 years. And so, as you can see, large institutions are already entered into the market. If you know what you're doing, you're supposed to do what the banks are doing. They're all doing the same thing, anyways. Let's see what this article is. We've seen this one. Uh, Fidelity Survey finds that institutional investors are eyeing crypto. It talks about that. You all can Google that one. It talks about 441 institutional investors from November to February. 72% of them, based off this survey, said they prefer to buy investment products that hold digital assets, while 57% of them chose to buy them directly. So, as you all can see, whether there's a mediary in between buying a digital asset, such as a Coinbase, or them actually buying directly into the companies. You can see, and once again, these are institutional investors. So it's a Fidelity. This is Fidelity making an investment. This is not your neighbor. Okay. They say Ether's one to look at. Uh, uh, they say a lot of the companies are investing via what do they call these fintech companies. And so one of the companies has gone through bankruptcy. It owes over 100,000 clients, more than 193 million in cryptocurrencies, because the founder Gary Cotton, or Jerry Cotton, died last year. Which is, still one of those things. You get into that space and you see how encrypted it is, and investments are can be failures. So, survey found that 47% of institutional investors said digital assets are worth investing in, with the same percentage saying they appreciate crypto for being innovative. Definitely want you all to continue to look into this space. You all can see a great benefit in this space. Uh, so we're going to talk about those things. Uh, what else do we have here for estate planning? We got that. We're going to do an episode about that one. Uh, so yeah, that's pretty much it for the good news. This is an interesting one. Bill Gates' net worth eclipses 100 billion. Uh, it says he remains the second richest after Bezos. But if you all understand, how he's set up, that he doesn't receive any money directly from Microsoft. It all goes to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's deferred his income to the foundation. That's why he has, here we go, Gates already has gifted over 35 billion. Hold on, let's go back to the net worth again. He's worth 100 billion, but he's gifted already 35 billion of that, because 100 billion is not liquid, ladies and gentlemen. We all know this. This is not liquid. This is a asset evaluation. Oh, he has 100, his worth, net worth, based off of assets. uh, they say is worth 100 billion, but 35 billion has been gifted away to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, largely the largest private philanthropy, uh, one of the largest ones in the world. uh, and so uh, here we go. I'm just doing my best to give you all this article. How in the 80s, this man has been dealing with the business world since the 80s. And so, just to give you all better ideas, traditionally, when you see now a lot of these guys that are in like Bill Gates position or Warren, a Zuckerberg position, they just end up becoming a founder. So, definitely end up probably going to doing an episode on a founder versus an owner, or an executive, because the founder term now has been created, and the founder term is the new high end thing of, if you are a startup company or if you are an entrepreneur, founder position is sort of like founder stock. That's why you see some of these companies go public or waiting so long to go public, but the founder is really not the owner anymore. They have it's a private company. That's why you all see ABC, or what do they call it, Alphabet A and Alphabet B and Alphabet C. These are three trust companies that are operating and holding Google, and every company that's up under the Google umbrella, which is, you can see that right in front of your face. So Charles, appreciate you. Honey Lamb, New Freeman, Shades, Cassandra, appreciate you. Lavelle, Linda, Anthony Pooler, appreciate you all. And like I say, if you are able to type into the chat just to give a quick shout out, we always appreciate that. Of course, a trust can, obviously, is a trust as a person, so of course they can own Bitcoin if it's an asset holder. That's what Fidelity is. Fidelity is a trust, so yes, it's holding. It says it's looking to be a custodial holder of what is that, of those digital assets. So a custodial holder for investors, private investors. So definitely, we can go straight into it though. How to set up a trust fund if you're not rich. So thanks Lewis and Linda for typing into the chat. Appreciate you all. How to set up a trust fund if you're not rich. Because setting up a trust fund if you're not rich puts you in a position to pass along wealth to your children. It allows you to create something that can outlive you. And they say it's two things that are guaranteed in life: taxes and death. So if that's the case, we already know what the trust has the power to do from research. And so one of them is, we definitely know that it doesn't die if the contract is a contract and it can be renewed. Why are so many people obsessed with, oh, I want to get a trust fund so I don't have to have my children manage my wealth, because I don't think my children, they're smart enough, so I just want my money to go to my grandchildren. How many times have we heard that? How many times have we heard, I don't want the money to go to the children directly of the individual that's talking about setting up a trust fund, and the next one saying, I just want to set it up for my grandchildren. So very important to say, hey, setting it up for my grandchildren. But why not are your children not managing it? Who's going to manage it then if you're not, when you go? Are the grandchildren going to manage it? Are the grandchildren trained to manage it? Or are they just put in a position of being a beneficiary, and they're going to benefit from what you put together for them, and when you set it up, they still don't know how to manage it afterwards? They just benefit from a disbursement. How to set up a trust fund if you're rich? You go to a lawyer, as most people would say. You go seek counsel. Once you seek counsel, you find out the different types of trust. That's what the vault and the trustee training provides. Is it provides a good overview and ancillary and cursory knowledge view of what a trustee would know, whether they're in a public trust or a private trust, and the various different sets of those, because it's only dealing in contracts. So you would go to a lawyer, you would obviously talk to a lawyer and say, how do you set up a trust contract? Whether they're going to help you do that, or whether you're going to do that and go to them on the back end. Because there's private and there's public. The vault helps you with that the distinction. Okay, so they're there, and hey, here's how the conversation goes. I need you to set up a trust, because you're talking to a lawyer. Hey, need you to set up a trust. That's the conversation. And how does it go? Well, there's different types of trust. Do you know what type of trust you want? We can do a living trust. We can do a revocable trust. Why? Because that's what they were trained to say. Period. So, public. Hey, it's going to be you, the creator. Who's going to be the trustee? Because in a trust, they're going to say, well, they might try to do the slight education. Slight education comes in the form of, well, do you know about trust? And you might say, no, I don't know about a trust. Because if you say no, you don't know about trust, then they're going to give you the legal counsel and legal aid and talk to you and say, well, there's a three-party contract. You got a grantor, you got a trustee, and a beneficiary. You can Google that right now on your phone and say, okay. I can Google the fact that a trust is a three-party contract, and it has a grantor, a trustee, and a beneficiary. So they can say, well, okay, you're going to create a trust, so you're going to be the grantor. Do you know who you want to be the trustee? That would be a good question, right? That's the difference between public and private, if you all recognize that one moment where if you create it and still are a trustee, you're public. And so private is a different level of contracting. Families pass things down. So you being passed down something in the form of being a trustee is different than something being passed down to grandchildren that they're receiving things as a beneficiary. And you may have received things in the same exact fashion. So there's a difference between being a trustee and a beneficiary. There's a difference between being a trustee and a grantor. So how do you set up a trust fund if you're not rich? You have to go find a good estate planning lawyer if you want to talk about that, because every lawyer doesn't practice trust law. So finding a good estate planning lawyer traditionally are going to be the individuals that you would talk to. So traditionally, when we even talk to these estate planning lawyers, traditionally they're focused on estate planning, not just focused on setting up trust. But it's good to have these conversations with estate planning lawyers to have the conversation about how wealth is to be passed along, because once again we traditionally are going to hear the first question is, oh, want to set up a trust fund not for my children, once again, but for my grandchildren. That's what you hear people say in the public. I don't want my children to manage the wealth. They're not good stewards of money, but I'm going to just give it to my grandchildren. I heard that one recently, so it's always a good one to kind of talk about, because you hear that type of thought process. That's like saying, do you directly want to give to your children directly? Do you give to your children directly? Because what position are they benefiting, or what position are they managing? One of the things that we provided the trustee training, which is dealing with asset management skills. And asset management skills are a continuing education, because if you're a true asset manager, you have an investor IQ, and an investor IQ is something that you invest in by making investments, not by reading a book. So how to set up a trust fund doesn't come by reading a book. It comes by getting out there, getting in front of the individuals that you need to get in front of, so you can actually talk to them about how the fund is to be created. Now, when we talk about a trust fund, we're not even just talking about it, ladies and gentlemen, from the perspective of estate planning. Oh, I want to give something to my children or give something to my grandchildren. We can talk about it from the perspective of a hedge fund, where individuals and communities are looking to make community chests and community funds. When they're looking to, when you say, oh, I want to invest with my friends, you invest in through a trust. That's why they call them real estate investment trusts. Why? Because it can divvy out shares. Hundreds of people can be beneficiaries of a fund that they invest in. Medical funds are some of the largest funds. Medical doctors have some of the largest funds, where they have real estate funds, and they're traditionally realty medical funds. So there are funds out there. It's a trust fund, once again. It is a fund that's set up that doctors invest in, and that fund goes out and buys real estate for the doctors to actually have medical facilities and commercial properties that this fund, once again, has the profits of. And if they are a beneficiary, beneficiary of it. They receive beneficial funds from that actual fund, but nevertheless, they're still a doctor of, the facilities that they are, quote unquote, beneficiaries of. And you might not even know indirectly. So once again, that is a trust fund. We took it away from now it being a family perspective of passing along wealth. We're talking about what you call a mutual fund. Well, a trust fund is a mutual fund. When you go look at your prospectus for your mutual fund, it is a trust fund. It is in a contract. It is in a position of power, and then it allows public people to invest. These are funds. It's a fund. It's a trust fund, but they don't call it a trust fund. They call it a mutual fund. And so, what's a mutual fund? You all know and can look up the definition where it's a fund of multiple funds. They call it a fund of funds. When you're in our space, it's called a fund of funds. But a trust fund, nonetheless, is in contract form, nonetheless. You all can still go to a lawyer and say, hey, me and my friends, we want to invest. So, how do we set up a trust fund so we can invest in receive distributions or have our families have money, somewhere in the future based off of the asset growing in a trust fund and things of that nature. It's a very valuable position. It's a very exciting position to be able to go with your friends to a lawyer and say, hey, we want to set up a investment trust or an investment fund. And so these are funds that can make different type of positions. Obviously, trusts are obviously going to be more favorable with institutions, larger institutions, which is always exciting. When you see that you have an entity as a trustee or an investor, because all private equity funds are all trusts. All private equity funds, you know private equity wouldn't be called private equity if it wasn't a private trust fund. So you got private equity. If you all want to do your research about private equity is what's running the world. It's private equity. They're trust funds. The largest, when people talk about Warren Buffett is to a degree private equity. I mean, he's going in and buying public companies. He did that from a strategic private position from the beginning. Do you know who his original initial investors of the fund are? And he has gone out and been the quote unquote fund manager. But at the same time, it's the Berkshire Hathaway Fund. There's a Berkshire Hathaway Foundation. These are trust funds that are out acquiring assets like any large funded or private equity firm is. And now we get into the term of venture capital, or once again private equity. We get into venture capital. Obviously, you get into those type of terms now. VCing, those private equity. That is what trust funds are. So when you say how to set it up, go look at what they're doing. Go find a lawyer that's did their contract. Like really make it a point to find out who set up those contracts. If you want to go that route, go Buffett status. If you want to go Bill Gates status, you go and deal with their funds. Now the trustee training that the vault provides is focused on knowing how to manage those funds as a trustee, because they're just trustees. That's all they are. Warren Buffett is a trustee. That's why he don't pull down a salary. That's why people always make jokes about Warren Buffett. They say, "Oh, Warren Buffett, he still drives the same old car, and he eats McDonald's, and he drinks Coke." It's like, well, at the same time, he doesn't make any money technically, so he's actually playing a role really, really well. He has assets under management. That is what happens when you get into the trust fund space. Is assets under management. How to set up a fund to manage assets. If you and your friends are looking to go out and acquire assets that are going to yield, what is that? Income, or what else do they call it? Profits, capital gains. All those good terms. Monies, quote unquote, back to your family estate for long-term purposes. Clearly, you would want to know how to be the best trustees you can possibly be. And so that's what the vault provides, is trustee training. But as far as how to set up a trust fund, there's different types of funds that trustees are going to set up as trustees, or manage different types of funds as a trustee. So the education of trusteeship is truly focused on trusteeship, not just focused on a trust fund in particular, because when you go to the attorneys, you always have okay, this is a fund that traditionally, once again, medical, real estate, once again, medical doctors and people are investing for real estate. So then you see that, and then you go see, okay, traditionally this is what a HOA looks like. It's an association. Or you can see how private communities are sitting on private trust that are in private capacities, and you all can see those things inside of that. So it was interesting even watching the news last night and seeing how they actually label private citizen. And we have an episode here at the Vault talking about private citizenship. But it's so interesting that they mentioned this on like it was on a CNN channel, and they were like, well, such and such about private citizens. And I'm like, how many people are able to sit in front of a conversation and identify what's considered to be a private citizen as opposed to someone that's just in the public? So understanding trust funds, obviously, because the contract and it's private, would give you a better understanding of what they're talking about when you look at that screen and say, oh wow, okay, that's what they're talking about right in front of me. So it's always exciting to be able to see how to set up a trust fund if you're not rich, because that is not based off of a money or how much you have. It's based off of, okay, it's a mindset. I need to be thinking in a position of business. I need to be thinking in a position of asset protection. I need to be thinking in a position of fund as opposed to, or founder as opposed to owner. Thinking more as a trustee as opposed to, once again, an owner, because trustee doesn't mean that you own anything. It just means you're a trustee. So it's always imperative to know the position that you're actually talking about. And the way that you do that is enrolling in trustee training. It's a 12-week course right now. We're in week going into week 3, I think, or we're going into week 4, either week 3 or week 4, ending it on week 4. So it's definitely, I know that actually the is gonna enrollment ends on the 10th of May. So if you all still want to inquire about trustee training, feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com or welcome to the vault.com. And enrollment ends 5/10, I'm pretty sure. And then on the back end of that, 12-week course opportunity for you all to really how to go and talk to the actual, you and your team to actually go and talk to the lawyer and say, hey, we want to have this fund set up for our families, and this that we want to move. And so yes, that is a public perspective, it's public trust, but at least you have the, once again, public and private mirror each other. So if you're able to be a public trustee, not to say you can always be a private trustee, but if you're a private trustee, you're able to be a public trustee. So that's what the private trustee training from the elite trustee training from the vault gives you. But then you can operate in the public as a trustee and move as a trustee, because trusteeship is all about management. It's all about serving. Whose last name are you working for? Are you working for the Waltons at Walmart, or are you working for your family last name? Are you proud of your last name? Is your last name a trust fund? Because if your last name's not even a trust fund, I mean, there's cause to ask about that. No, 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 no judgment on that. But we're talking about family trust funds. So when you know about the Rockefellers, when you know about the Rothschilds, when you know about the Mellons, when you know about large financiers, even in certain places that I've traveled, there are museums built after people that have, like, their house is turned into a museum and now it's considered charitable property. So that property is not going to leave the county, and that property is going to be in the county, and that's that. And that's interesting because going to DC and seeing a Frederick Douglass house, or going to see the Lincoln estate, or you all going to see different estates and things like that, the Washington estates, to go see those estates. Those estates are preserved in a position of trust. They have trustees over those properties. Maybe the heirs have passed, maybe the heirs didn't continue living, but that property is being managed inside of a fund. And so being able to have trust, be able to have property be preserved in that county or that city for periods of time is very, very important. Being able to talk and have that conversation with an estate planner is very critical. So always appreciate you all. Uh, Thanks Bomo for tuning in live, and Linda, just appreciate you all. If you have any questions, feel free to type into the chat. How to set up a trust fund if you're not rich. Once again, we talked about having good counsel. You know, we all know it's contracts. To be completely honest with you, if you really want to know the super secret of all secrets, for all you all that have stayed on for 23 minutes, it's at the law library, ladies and gentlemen. You can go into a law library, look at the contracts that a trust fund is set up off. They have pleadings and forms already there. That's why you're able to seek legal counsel, because it has to deal with something that deals with money. So you're able to go and look at the contracts and see what the contract is supposed to look like, and then say, hey, you can use that template. Same thing the lawyer is going to do, and you all can talk to the lawyer and go over it with your lawyer. Why not? It's exciting to know that you're at least able to have a conversation with your counsel about how to set up a trust fund if you're not rich. And there you go. That's the extra space. But I appreciate you all for tuning in live, listen, replay. Don't see any questions in the chat. Appreciate you all. Feel free to reach out, Christian at Trust Christian or welcome to the vault.com for inquiries about trustee training. Look forward to connecting with you all. And you all enjoy the rest of your day. Peace and blessings.